can go.
Ready?
Hi guys, and welcome back. My name is Emily. I'm here with Paul, and we bring you another episode of FoodTaku podcast today. Today we're here because we really want to talk to you guys about our worst experiences at conventions that we've ever had. Because boy, are there a lot of them, you know?
Are there a lot? I feel like the ones that exist in my mind, there's quite a few, but none of them are. Some of them are pretty bad. So I'm okay. Some of them are pretty terrible. But like they're also, I don't want to spoil anything. But okay, do you want to start off the bat, because I can rant for a bit.
Well, I feel like I'm thinking about my bad convention experiences, and honestly, I think that most of them have more to do with like my friend drama
Oh no, that
than
is
anything
literally the worst.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't been going to cons for that long. I started going to Fanime Con in, I want to say 2016
Okay.
or something like. No. I started at SAC Anime,
Oh yeah.
Sacramento Anime Convention, and the very first time I went to a convention, I saw Vic Minog. I never learned how to say his last
Yeah,
name.
he does a lot of voice acting, right? I think I know who you're talking about.
Do you know
No?
the drama with him?
Oh no,
Oh
I don't want to.
God.
Oh, was he the
Oh
one like who blew up
yeah.
online, like peak
Yeah.
cancel culture?
Accused of
A lot of
no,
things.
accused of sexual
Yeah.
assault.
Oh,
He sexually assaulted a bunch of people.
Yeah, I won't get into that.
Yes.
But it was at
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
SAC anime.
Yeah, that was the first
Oh,
convention I ever went to, and I remember thinking like, #blessed. I'm meeting this guy. He's such a prolific,
yeah.
whatever. And I did meet him, and he did offer me the gospel. You know, he likes to record the Bible or
Hmm.
whatever, and he does different voices to like speak the Bible. And he gave that to me, and I don't think I took it because I didn't have a CD player with which to
A
play it on, and
CD
that's what he was.
player. Does anyone remember those?
Yeah,
What are those? What are
I know.
CDs? Yeah. Oh my
Takes
God.
you
God, I
back,
feel
right?
so old. Oh my.
Yeah, so that was my first convention experience, and then I've only really been to Fanime in San Jose, and then we went to Anime Expo last year,
Hmm.
or this summer is like the last convention that I went to. So my experiences are fewer than most, I would say. What about you?
Oh God. So I think my first convention was Anime Expo 2008, and I've been going to cons
Damn.
every year since then, like multiple conventions. We go
Yeah.
to a lot
Wow.
of conventions. Like I think this
Mm.
last year we probably did 6 conventions. And I have
Wow.
one more coming up in November, KomoriCon. We're just going to show up to do some
Yeah.
like cosplaying and people watching and drinking heavily. And right, that's kind of what you do. The reason why I think I went to my first Anime Expo in 2008, which is wild. I still have pictures from it, and seeing the LA
Mm.
Convention Center basically empty compared to what it was you saw how nuts Anime
Oh,
Expo was,
yeah,
right?
it was
Like you could
crazy this
barely
summer.
breathe in that convention. Like in the artist alley, it felt like you
Yeah.
were in a sauna with
Yeah.
25,000 other people in that one room. But then
Mm.
2008, it felt like there was no one. You could like walk around, and it was almost intimate. To think about Anime
Yeah.
Expo as intimate, that was it's
It's
kind of a wild like thing to say.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know there's people in the audience who probably have gone to smaller conventions. Maybe you've gone to an Anime Expo pre like 2015 is where it really like blew up, I think.
Mm.
But before that, Anime Expo was really low key. So I actually had
Mm.
really good experiences with the smaller ones. And I remember every
Yeah.
nightmare experience I would say I've had with a con has been due to my own folly. And it's usually with one of my cosplays and just not thinking. So I love cosplaying. My first
Mhm.
cosplay was Ichigo, and which is fitting because of
Mm.
the video that I'm filming right now, or at the time of this
Right,
recording.
right, right.
But the first one I did was Mugetsu, his like final form, right at the end when he's fighting Aizen,
Yeah.
and absolutely love it. But I didn't know how to make a costume. So I bought like the
Mm.
cheap black wig, the long black wig or whatever. I did the arm
Yeah.
paint or whatever. Like I'm doing it myself. It's like
Oh.
it looks like a 3-year-old with a Crayola, and then
Oh
I
God.
bought like black material to make his like his gi. It's just like the bottom gi. But then he has like this bandage looking material over his chest,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't know how to make that. So I just used athlete's tape and just taped it.
Oh no, Paul. How much did that hurt taking it off?
It was pretty painful. Not gonna lie, like it gave me like a
Yeah.
slight rash because of the glue, because it was
Ah!
on for so
Oh
long,
no.
right? Like luckily the arm
Oh.
part I used like an ace bandage, you know, I
Yeah.
learned how to dye stuff, but like I straight up just put athlete's tape across my chest and stomach. And my best
No,
friends
man.
that we just visited last week, they were in the parking
Yeah.
lot with me, taping me up. I was like, guys, here's a picture.
No.
Here's a picture. Can you make me look like this? We were just taping each other.
Oh.
It was yeah, that was a a fun experience because I got to cosplay the first time, but that was
Yeah.
like not a great experience to think like back on, right? It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I feel like anytime you cosplay for the first time at a con,
it's
it never goes
nothing goes
well.
well. Yeah, especially
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
as someone who cosplays a lot, putting it on at home is very different than wearing it to a convention for multiple hours. So what a lot of people don't realize is when you see cosplayers, they
Mm.
maybe have worn that thing once at home.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
For like an
oh
hour
my
or
god! So here's
two.
an
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
It's another cosplay related one, but
Yeah.
we were at, I think it was PAX West, and this was like
Mm.
2018, 2019, and there was this one lady who was dressed, she's not a lady, she was really young, but she was dressed as like a Warframe character. I don't know if you're familiar with that game.
Mm.
She like
Mm-mm.
full
Mm-mm.
armor, like awesome like helmet, full covered
Yeah.
helmet or whatever, but
Like clearly a lot of
she
effort.
could barely move in it because it was hard armor pieces that was made out of Warbler, and
Oh.
Warbler is like a hard plastic, and she
Yeah.
couldn't see out
Yeah.
of the helmet. And her friend like left her outside to
No.
go get water somewhere, and
No.
she's like just standing there
Oh, no.
like for a while. She was there for like 5 or 10 minutes just kind of standing by a rail while people were taking pictures, and I'm like, this isn't right. She's not moving. So I
No.
was like, what's up? What's
Yeah.
going on? So I walk up to her. I was like, hey, are you okay? She's like, and she was like, had to like kind of hold up her helmet because she could barely get it off. She's like, my friend went to go get
Oh.
water and she hasn't come back. I'm like, oh, I'll hang out with you until your friend. It was like 35 minutes later, right? Like literally just chilling, like trying to
No.
help her, like holding up her sign for her and stuff like that. I'm like,
That's
what is
horrible.
this? Like this poor girl
Yeah.
wrapped in armor,
Oh
which
my
is also her
god.
fault for not thinking
Yeah.
about wearing
It's
stuff like
that
that.
through, exactly.
Right.
But yeah.
But then her friend for just leaving her. And I'm like, this happens all
Yeah.
the time at cons, you know?
Yeah.
And granted, it wasn't me who was wearing all of that. So I was very thankful that day. But I'm like, why would you do that to someone? Just like straight up
Eh,
leave them.
you leave them
Yeah.
knowing that they can't go anywhere without you.
No,
Yeah,
no.
that's horrible.
I,
That's horrible.
I think there's been quite a
I feel
few
like
costume mishaps.
Yeah. Well, I feel like with costuming, because it's so finicky in particular and you've got to have the right things on
Hmm.
and you need someone to carry your bag for you or whatever,
Hmm.
the people you have with you are really, really
Yeah.
important. And I feel like that's where it gets weird for cosplay, because I feel like a lot of people who cosplay are not really like used to or maybe as comfortable like asking people for that kind of help,
Hmm.
because what you're basically asking is for someone to follow you around all day and hold your stuff
Yeah.
for you, which
That's
is
why
like
they're called handlers, you know?
yeah, yeah, and it's not like a fun thing to ask your friends to do, or it doesn't feel
Yeah.
that way. So it can be kind of like awkward to do
It
that
it
and
is,
feel
but
like you're
I have friends that help, but I also like my favorite cosplay right now is Uzui from Demon Slayer, and I'm gonna be wearing
nice.
that next month as well. But like it's a
Yeah.
super comfortable costume. The only thing that's kind of a pain is his giant swords that I made. But even those I
Yeah.
can just like throw over my shoulder and hold a beer, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not that big of
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've gone around with friends who are like, I'm in like a princess gown. I need you to help me. And like they have like the full ballroom gowns. Even then they're
Yeah.
okay. But I've seen people who are just like they cannot function without two or three people.
Mm.
And it's a
Yeah.
hard ask. You're like, hey, can I buy you dinner? Can I like pay for your ticket? Like you gotta pay those people. You know, like
Yeah.
handlers
Yeah.
are super important. But in that same
Yeah.
regard, I think there's a lot of etiquette that goes with the cosplay community. I don't know how it is out in Japan. Have you gone to a con out in Japan yet?
I haven't had a chance because of COVID.
Hmm.
Everything has been totally like shut down.
Yeah.
But I have heard stories and that it's very similar and maybe in some ways a little bit worse than it is. Like I feel like at least at the cons that I went to in California, it was really becoming a thing of like cosplay is not consent. You can't
Yes.
just go up
It's
to people and
huge.
touch them or take pictures. Like you need
The
to
free
like
hugs and all
ask or
that.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had heard that in Japan it was a little bit people would just kind of like take advantage of the fact that you're dressed up and like take a picture or whatever. But that's totally hearsay. I have no idea if that's true or not, and I haven't had the chance to kind of like see for myself. But
Which is
um,
interesting because I know there are cultural differences, but I know that
mm,
out here, like if you're going to a con and you're dressed up, you, I don't want to say you should assume, but you should assume that people are just going to take pictures of you, right? You could be
mhm,
like
mhm.
just walking around and somebody just like, oh, just walks by, and I've seen it all the time. They just like,
Snaps a
just snap a
picture.
photo. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's fine. You know, you're in a public
yeah,
space. You're allowed to take photos and video, right? It is what it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
The one thing that I'm like, I've had people who I'll be in full cosplay and like I have a Subway sandwich like halfway down my throat and they're like, "Oh, can I get a picture?" I'm like, "Do you want this picture? Because this is what you're gonna get." Right? I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just simple things like that. And
It's striking a balance of like you can take a picture of me, but I'm not gonna adjust myself to you. You
mhm.
know, like this is you're getting what you're getting.
Yeah, and
But
I get it because
yeah,
it happens more often than people think, and
yeah.
those are very few and far between. I think to say which one has been like my worst experience as far as cosplay goes, because we haven't even talked about convention food, because Jesus Christ, don't get me started on convention food. The worst one was unfortunately KomoriCon, right, which I'm going to be going
Mm,
to next month, and I was dressed up. Have you ever seen Ruby? Like
yeah. Well,
RWBY?
I I know what you're referring to. Yeah.
Okay, so the main character, it's the like the red dressed girl, right? I did a crossplay
Yes.
of that
Yes.
where I made like a
Oh,
Ronin version of it. So I did like all the
cool.
like I basically tried to do Ronin warriors, but as
Yeah.
Ruby.
Yeah.
And so I had like all the
Yeah.
arm guards and everything, and I had like this, the giant like belt over the chest, and I was bare chested, but and I had like a robe like that came probably like to right about here for the cloak, and I made
Yeah.
her weapon that actually like opened up and shot Nerf darts and like the whole 9 yards, right? It was insane.
Whoa,
I
that's
there's
cool.
actually a
What's
video
the catch here?
there. So at KomoriCon, I was bare chested, and
Yeah.
they asked me to like, hey, you have to cover up your nipples, because we're in this space, and I'm like, okay,
Okay.
I get it. What it's your rules, but the convention center, the rules are not by them. This is KomoriCon's rules.
Mm.
So at PAX
Mm.
or whatever, you're fine. You can be like
You
a
can do
Demon
whatever you
Slayer
want.
character,
Yeah.
right? Like oh my god, why is his name escaping me? Pretty boy Boarhead, not
Oh,
Inosuke, right? Yeah,
Inosuke. Yeah.
Inosuke.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
dress up like him and no one's gonna say anything. But the
Mhm.
kicker is they asked me to cover up. So I'm like, oh, how do I do this? Like I literally don't have anything. So I pulled the cloak further
Yeah.
down and kind of like tucked it into the belt. And so it just covered to right here. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
dumb. But while I'm doing this, two people dressed up as Mario and Peach in BDSM gear, like with like
No.
full on like thong all up the butt, right? Like on a
Oh.
chain, and they only had pasties on, right? So
Oh
yeah, oh
no.
yeah. So they're like
So
everything is
they're okay.
yeah, and they were okay. And I'm like looking at them, I was like, bro, how about that? I was like, there's a 3-year-old
Mm.
right there. So me
Yeah.
basically in a bathing suit, because that's what that
Yeah.
is not okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's fine.
But
And I'm
this is
like,
okay.
I was like, I'm just gonna go home. I don't even want to support
Yeah.
this con anymore. I
Yeah.
get it, it's their rules because of whatever, maybe because they just don't want nipples out.
Nah,
But I'm
man.
like, bro, her boobs are
This
literally
is where you
hanging
get in
out.
problem.
Yeah.
This is where you get in trouble with dress codes.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a dress code, it's always like it's going to be unfair for someone,
hmm
and it's like I don't
my
know.
my thing is
I'm not a
so
fan of
so
dress codes.
I kind of got a little ticked off. I will admit I got
Mm.
really snarky, and I'm like, okay, so if I come back next year and I put little leaves over my nipples and my junk, I'm okay, I'm allowed in. And they're like,
I'm
well,
okay.
technically, yeah. I'm like, what? Why is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is not okay.
See, they need to go back and check their dress code rules,
Yeah,
and if they're gonna have a dress code, they need to like really think it through
yeah.
because and like think about who their clientele is and who's coming
I'm like,
and like
this is an
the
anime
normal
convention, right?
behavior.
Like having somebody
Yeah.
who's basically in a male bathing suit is, to me, is not a big
Yeah.
deal. I don't know. Either way,
No.
that
Yeah.
to me was just dumb. But
Yeah.
if we were to talk about like do you want to talk about the food at some of these conventions? You were at Anime Expo. You were there with me.
I have. Oh wow, yeah.
hmm
Okay, so in terms of like bad convention experiences, I definitely think that food is one that can be really bad if you're
hmm
not prepared. I also personally have like a little bit of a bone to pick with hotel rooms at conventions,
Okay.
and not not the room itself, but just the fact that everyone like squeezes himself into one room,
Oh
and it
yeah.
becomes a huge, frustrating, annoying problem. Like when I started going to conventions and staying the night, because we were poor and college
Yeah.
students,
Yeah.
it would be legitimately 15 people sharing one hotel room.
Oh
Like
no. No,
like
thank
it
you.
was so bad, to the point that like I have jokes with some friends about like my friend Alexa sleeps in the windowsill because she's small and she can fit into
And it
the
probably happened,
windowsill.
right?
And like, yes, of
Oh
course.
jeez.
And like that's where she slept for like 3 days. And like people sleeping in the bathtub, sleeping on the floor. We would get rooms with like king size beds and squeeze 5 people into these
Oh my
beds, just
god.
like little sausages. It was
Little Viennas.
horrible. Yeah, it was horrible. And like this caused a lot of like problems, as you can
Well,
imagine. We've got
yeah.
like people sleeping like back to front to other people, and like a lot of woo,
I've
deviant
I'm
behavior
so
going
glad I
on
never
and all kinds of
experienced that.
things. Yeah, it was horrible.
Especially
And
as
like, don't
broke
get me
college
wrong.
students, you're probably 5 people in a bed and half the people are drunk.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. And don't get me wrong, like it was all fun and I'm friends with most of those people still, and you think you look back on those memories and you're like, "Ah, remember when we did that?" But like in hindsight, it was it was so bad. Like squished together, no privacy, like cuz you're only in the room ostensibly to sleep,
Hmm.
and then we were trying to do cosplay and all of that
Oh
too, and that was
no.
just a mess. And the year that I got my own hotel room that I only shared with like one other person, I was like, this is what it means to be an
Yeah,
adult. This
right.
is what it
Yeah.
means to have adult
You're
money.
like,
Like
this
this
is
is peace.
not even that. You're like, okay, maybe I won't buy the waifu statue and instead get a room with like one other person. Because that's really what it equates
Yeah.
to, right? Like,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I kind of have a hard rule where I will not be in a room with more than two cosplayers. It's just not enough
Mm.
room. So
Smart.
it's
Sensible.
usually
Yeah.
my wife and I. So which works
Mm.
out, right? And then sometimes we'll have a friend who stays too, and we'll just have an extra bed. But I'm like, more
Yeah.
than two people trying to cosplay in one room, you're literally on top of
Yeah.
each other. There's one bathroom. Like how? Where are you getting ready?
Yeah.
You may as well just
Yeah.
get ready in the parking lot.
Yeah. And I feel like you need a space to decompress too,
Hmm.
because the con can be so overwhelming and there's so much going on all at once and so many things to do. And and to have a hotel room that you're sharing with like so many other
It's too
people,
much.
yeah, it's
It's
too
too
much.
much.
It's too much. It's not
On
fun.
the flip
Yeah.
side, so talking about like being an adult, right? Like so the
Mm.
last con we went to was Emerald City Comic Con that I could think of, which was just my wife and we had a room
Yeah.
across from the convention center. But
Mm.
if I don't count that, we stayed at for Sakura Con in April, and
Mm.
they're in Seattle. And across from that, literally across the street, was a Hyatt that we stayed at, and it was me and my two best friends. But we've all been best friends since like 12 years old, right? So we
Right.
all know each other's mannerisms. And as we're going through the con, we would do our thing and we would go have dinner and be like, it's 7 p.m. It was like, you guys want to go take a nap? And be like, yeah, sure. And we just all go back. We have our own beds. We take a nap for an
Yeah,
hour and then
that's
we
so
like
nice.
rejuvenate ourselves. And then like, it's such a different,
Get back out
yeah,
there.
different
Yeah.
experience than like shoving that, like, if you say, let's say even 10 people and there's two beds and
Yeah.
maybe a pull out, you're talking about 350 to $400 a night, right? So it's like $40 a person. You
Yeah.
can't spend 60 or 70 instead and maybe like not buy one thing. I would do that and get two rooms instead, like,
Yeah, and totally depends on like your financial situation
mhm.
and everything, and all that. But
Because
yeah,
cons
you do
aren't
have
cheap.
to
I
weigh
agree
at
there.
some point.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
expensive. Yeah, you do have to weigh like what you value the most.
Hmm.
And like at that time in our lives, we were going for Artist Alley and like
Yep.
the camaraderie of friendship and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
power of
as I get
friendship.
older, yeah, as I get older, and I'm like, you know what, I really don't need like all of the stuff that I
Hmm.
usually buy. Like, I would rather just be able to like have some nice meals
Yeah, for
and
sure.
sleep well.
I think I kind of also set a rule for myself. Like when I go to a con, I try to only buy like one nice thing, and it's usually like a Gundam,
Mm,
which ends up being
mm,
$100. Sometimes
yeah,
I still haven't splurged on like the really nice ones because I can't find the
on
one
like
that I
something
want.
crazy.
Yeah, I want like a one of the giant ones, but I can't. I'll just buy one when I come out there to Tokyo. But that's my one thing. That way, I know it's going
Mm,
to be expensive, and if I don't buy it, then maybe I just get another meal. But like this
yeah.
past time at Anime Expo, the the experiences weren't like buying stuff from Artist Alley, which I got a few things, but it was
Mm.
going to get like Galbi Gym in Koreatown with some friends. It was like doing the
Yeah.
panel, right? It's like going and meeting people and talking to people and just cosplaying. Those are the things that I
Yeah.
start to remember more of than I just bought a bunch of prints because I
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
anywhere to put them anyways now. So to each their own, like the print that's right back here, it was a gift, and that's it. And it's
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
love that stuff. But I think
Mm.
now with cons, I wish there were a better way of rooming people, but it's
Mm.
hard because like
Yeah.
how much was Anime Expo? I think it was like $150 for the weekend badge. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
Yeah.
money, you know.
Yeah. It is a lot of money, and then hotel room on top of that. I'm very lucky. I have an aunt who lives in
Oh
LA,
yeah.
and I just slept on her
Hmm.
couch because the hotel for like 4 days was like a
Yeah.
thousand
It costs us
dollars,
a
or
thousand
3 days
dollars.
or something like
Yeah.
that. And yeah, I was like, I can't. I don't. I literally can't countenance that money. Like I could afford it,
Hmm.
but I couldn't. I just like have a really hard time spending unnecessarily large amounts of money, and
Hmm.
I was like, I can't do that. I will just stay with my aunt.
Yeah. I mean,
Like she's cool.
you
I'll
have to
sleep on her
consider, I
couch.
think for us, for like my wife and I, Anime Expo cost us about $3,000 to attend. Because you're
Wow.
considering flights plus hotel plus
Yeah.
we were given badges, but I already bought badges. So like, yes, they gave me
Yeah.
badges for
Oh,
being a panelist,
dang.
but I already spent $300 on 2 weekend badges that I actually just gave to
Oh,
fans. I was like, here, if
yeah.
you guys need the tickets, just take them. Like, don't pay me for them,
Yeah.
whatever. But then the food and drink and everything else that comes with it, I had a blast. But
Yeah.
$3,000 is a lot of money. And yes, I can use it for
Yeah.
business because I'm going there for work technically and
Right.
I'm
Right.
having a
Right.
good time doing it. But it's like for the average person, how like
It's a lot of
so the
money.
only way to circumvent that, this is like my business brain, is having more conventions in more cities, right?
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
because there's a
Spread the love.
lot in California, but there's
Mhm.
only one anime convention in the Northwest, and that's
Mm.
SakuraCon in April. So if you want to go to
Right.
more than that, you have to travel,
Yeah.
and what do? That you're forced.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully as anime continues to like gain in popularity, more of these things will happen. And I would actually say like some of my best experiences have been at smaller
Hmm.
conventions because they're just so much more fun. Because they're smaller, they're a lot less crowded. Your shopping experiences in
Hmm.
Artist Alley and Expo, and like Dealers Hall are a lot more
Hmm.
fun. Going to panels is a lot more fun because you have a chance to like interact with the
Hmm.
panelists and talk with them. The guests are a lot more fun. Oh my god, did I disappear?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so conventions. I was saying smaller
Smaller
conventions.
conventions,
Smaller
yes.
conventions are better because it's just so much easier to get around. Your experiences are better. It's a lot more fun. You're not so crowded. Like I would say that this summer I was at Anime Expo and
Hmm.
I straight up left. I went
It was
one day. I
hard.
went Friday.
Yeah,
I went Friday and I left on Saturday. I
yeah.
was like, I can't do this.
I went all
It's
four
just too
days. I
much.
went all 4 days.
Ugh.
I went full bore Friday, full bore Saturday. Sunday
Mm,
we were there for like a half day. Because I had a
mm,
signing, so we just went to do
yeah.
the signing and we kind of walked around a bit and left.
Mm,
Monday, Rachel and my friend that we were staying with, they're like, we're done. We're not going. But when I went on Monday, it was the best day because like
yeah.
everyone was gone.
Everyone's
And I
gone.
was doing
Yeah.
B-roll and walking around. I'm like, oh, this is great. So if you're in the LA area and you're going to a show like Anime Expo, just go on a Monday. Go the last
Monday.
day.
Yeah.
No one's there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I agree with you on the
And
smaller
sometimes some
conventions.
of the best content. Yeah, sorry, just to add on that, sometimes some of the best stuff is on Monday
Hmm.
because they shuffle like all the panelists who are maybe like new or haven't had a panel before or are maybe not as big, they get kind of shuffled to the last day.
Hmm.
And those can sometimes be some of the best like things that you go to
Hmm.
because they're so like weird,
Yeah. But
or
also really
funny,
intimate,
interesting.
because
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
smaller crowd, or it's like diehard fans, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite smaller conventions, I don't know how big it is. I don't think it's massive, but it's the Retro Gaming Expo out here in Portland. And it's
Mm.
literally like they have a full hall filled with all of these vendors who are selling stuff from the 80s and 90s, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
really
yeah.
cool. But then they have an entire area with like the original Ataris set up, and they have, the
Yeah.
N64s and NES and and pinball machines and like
That's so
you're paying, and
cool.
it's only $50 for the entire weekend for
Yeah.
3 days. And if you don't even
Yeah.
buy anything, you spend the $50, you go in and you can just play video games the entire weekend.
Mm.
And yeah, there's a little bit of a premium on that, but to like go play video games, but these are games you're never going to really find anywhere else, right? Because they're all so
Yeah.
old. And then you can still do Artist Alley, and like I went and played like pickup games of Magic, and that was super fun. But I think the only other small convention I've gone to is SakuraCon. Technically is a small convention, but it doesn't feel small. It's
No,
20,000
it's
people.
not
Yeah.
small. That's 20,000 people. That's
Well,
freaking
compared to
huge.
like
Small is like
Well,
5,000.
compared to a lot of other cons, I think okay, so Rose City Comic Con I think was 15,000. So that was
Yeah.
technically smaller. And that one was done I felt really well. That was a fun one. That was where we had our booth,
Mm.
but not all conventions are without their issues. So even the smaller
Mm.
ones have their problems. The bigger ones especially have their problems. Like the
Yeah.
fire marshal getting called at Anime Expo, that was
Yeah.
wild. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
dumb.
Yeah, it's like different variances of problems, right? Like big conventions usually have those like bigger like fire marshal-y, like is there enough water on the
Yeah.
premises for everyone to be drinking kind of problems. Small cons have like straight up like implosion issues
Uh-huh.
where whoever's running them will like run away with the money
Yeah, and just
or,
leave. Just bounce.
yeah,
Hmm.
and it just doesn't go to plan. I mean, like the amount of failed cons out there, Tumblr DashCon,
Oh, I don't
I've
even know what that
watched
is.
quite. Oh, it was the Tumblr convention
Oh my god, I don't
that
even want to
never
know.
happened.
Never mind. A straight
There's
up
some
Tumblr convention.
Yeah, there's some amazing videos exploring this convention and how it was like the original. You know how they had like TanaCon or whatever? Are you
Yes.
familiar with
Oh
that?
yeah, I heard about
Like
that drama.
there's those. I think like DashCon is the precursor to all of that, and it was like the original, like everyone donated this money because they were so excited for this con to happen, and then the person organizing it like ran off
Just
with the money.
bounced.
And
See that kind
yeah,
of that
yeah,
kind of irritates me a little bit because as someone who wants his own convention someday, it's like you're
yeah.
you're doing it for people to enjoy. So it just
Mm.
means you just don't care about the people who put money in. That's
Well,
kind of what it sounds like to me, which sucks.
I I think that's true. I think there's other variances too of like when you ask yourself like who's qualified to organize a
Right.
convention?
Right.
Like who actually knows how to do that? And a lot of times these people just decide like, "Oh, I want to have a convention. I'm going to start collecting money and we'll make it happen." Like if I have the money, it'll just happen.
It's
And
so
I think
much
this
work.
is yeah, it's so much work. You actually, have to employ systems to use that money in a correct and like responsible way. And
Mhm.
when you don't know how to do that, which in the case of this DashCon person, I think the person organizing it was like straight up like 17 or 18
Oh
or something like
no.
that, and like had no idea what they were
No,
doing.
no,
And that's not
no,
an
yeah,
excuse for
no
them, but
offense for any 16 or 17-year-olds, but running like I used to manage hotels, and that in and of
mm,
itself, like you're only dealing with like at most 1,100 people inside of a hotel for guests, and maybe
mhm,
350
mhm,
employees. So let's say 1,500 people with the food and
yeah,
drink. That's still like it was still overwhelming at times, right?
yeah, yeah,
I can't imagine trying to because you have a year basically
yeah,
to organize and execute a convention, right? And it's
yeah,
one massive weekend and then you're moving on to
yeah,
the next one. And
mm,
I've worked pretty closely with the guys who do like Rose City Comic Con and Anime NYC, and just
right,
seeing how much work goes into it throughout the entire year is
yeah,
insane, right? Like
yeah,
cons, I do give them credit where credit is due of like this stuff isn't easy. It's not easy to put
mm,
on Anime Expo with 130,000 people showing up, right?
yeah.
140,000 people, whatever it was.
Oh, you know what? That just stirred in my head a memory. I have put on a convention before.
What?
Yeah, okay, not me exclusively. This was
This
back when I
wasn't
was in
like Emily
college.
Con, MCon,
No, it wasn't Emily
MCon
Con. No,
4.
MCon. Oh, that would be so sick. No, it wasn't. I was in college. I was part of the anime club at my
Yeah,
college.
of course you were.
Davis Anime
It's
Club.
amazing.
Yeah, of course
I
I
wish
was.
we had one.
And
I had to hide my weeb.
I was dude, it was great. Some of my like best friends I met in that club and I still hang out with them. So anyway, I'm in this club. We had a president and we had various vice presidents. I was the vice president of events. I
Okay.
was in charge of putting events on. So like we would do, we would have club meetings twice a week, and then one of those days we'd do an after DAC. We'd call it after DAC, where you go after the club to like get food
Okay.
somewhere, and then on the weekends we would have like social events and that kind of thing. And I was in charge of planning all that. So my president gets in his head that he wants to do a convention, and like we're gonna pull this off, and we're gonna rent space at the school, and we're gonna turn it into this whole thing, and we're gonna have guests, and it's gonna be great. So we, as far as I know, what do we call it? Daikon. It's called Daikon.
Daikon,
Davis
perfect. Yeah, of course it
Anime
was Daikon.
Convention.
I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Okay, that's pretty good.
yeah. So it's called Daikon, and I think it only ran for 3 or 4 years total,
That's
but
still
it
pretty
was
good.
successful. Yeah, I was only part of it for 1 year, I want to say. I think 1 year, because I had to, in the next year, I had to dip to Spain for a
I just
while.
had to bounce to Spain.
For
Yeah, just gonna go to
yeah,
Spain. I'll see you guys
no,
later.
no
No
big
big deal.
deal, no
No
big
big
deal.
deal. Just go to Spain.
But it was a crazy experience because I was in charge of events, so I was constantly in meetings with the people at the university to rent their premises.
Hmm.
You have to come up with all these things. Like you've got to make sure that there's enough water for everyone to drink.
Yep.
You have to like
It's
figure
the
out the
little
flows of
things.
traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really
you
the
have to
little
figure out how
things.
you're gonna like peace bond all of the stuff and
Hmm.
like what the school rules are and what your rules are, and you've got to get all the vendors and you've got to hire all the people and you've got to bring the guests in and like incentivize them to come, you
Yeah,
know,
like why are
for
you
with
paying to be
what.
here? Yeah,
Y-
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And I particularly was in charge of the maid cafe, and
Nice.
I want to make it super clear that I have never been to a maid cafe ever in my
Have you
life.
been to one
So
in
I was
Tokyo since
not.
then?
No, I have
What?
no, because
Leave.
the
Podcast is over.
I'll
Go to a maid cafe right now.
so I'm waiting for you, Paul. I'm waiting for you to come so we can
I've
go
been to a
together.
maid cafe.
Really?
Yes, because
Was
I
it?
got duped into it.
Oh, yeah. See, that's the thing. You got duped into it, and
Yeah.
I have never. I see those maids on the street every
When
time I
I
go
visit, we're going
to
first thing.
Akihabara.
First thing that's
Yeah,
happening. Okay.
dude. You, me,
Yep,
Rachel,
we're
like
going in.
let's
Yep, we're
go.
gonna go
Let's
sing and
go.
dance. It's gonna be great.
I have heard only the cringiest of things about it. Only the cringiest of things. And honestly, if I went to a cafe here, I would only go with you because I feel like that would be fitting. But there's other cafes, like there's like butler cafes
Hmm.
that I would much prefer to go to
Okay,
because I
I'd go
think
with you guys to a
that
Butler Cafe.
serves right.
Yeah,
Let's do a little
yeah,
swapsy.
it'd
I'll
be
go to a
great.
maid cafe. You go to a butler cafe with me. It'll be really fun. So I've never been to a maid cafe. And so when I was planning this like situation, I had to order the
Hmm.
outfits so that everyone could have the same uniform. I was in charge of putting the menu together. I was in charge of baking everything
Oh
for the
my
menu.
god.
And you have experience doing like baking en masse and
Hmm.
like cooking en masse and like restaurant, that kind of thing. I have only been a waitress at a restaurant. Like that's as high as ever got in that in that line of work.
Hmm.
And I suffice it to say I'm shocked to this day that the cakes turned out at all
Like
and
actually
were
worked.
good at
Yeah.
all. Yeah. We had 3. This is all coming back to me now. Oh
Isn't
my
it funny how
god,
that
what an
works?
unlocked memory. Yeah, we had 3 cakes. We had, I think, a lemon almond drizzle cake. We
How do
had
you
a
remember
vanilla
all? Oh my
cake,
god.
vanilla strawberry cake. I love making menus, so this was like so fun for me. And I think we had a chocolate cake. And I'll never forget that I really wanted a specific kind of frosting for the vanilla strawberry cake. I wanted an ermine frosting. You know what an ermine frosting is?
It does sound very familiar. Refresh me.
It's made with the base is it's like a flour base. It's like a flour
Oh, it's almost like
frosting.
a buttercream but with flour, right? Like there's some.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. And I find ermine frostings to be superior. No one uses them anymore.
Hmm.
They're very like out of fashion. They have been for years.
Hmm.
But I really like the taste of them. And so I really wanted to make this frosting for this cake because I thought that everyone would love it. So the problem with it is that when you make a flour-based frosting, you have to cook the
Yep.
flour
Oh,
down into a
yep,
paste, right?
yep, yep.
And so there we are. I've done this small scale before. I've never done a big scale. There we are in like we rented out an industrial kitchen for this. We are in this kitchen. I am standing over the stove, just frantically whisking the crap out of this flour like roux mixture, basically, and like waiting for it to reduce because it needs to dry out
Hmm.
enough that you can add it to the frosting and it will help like blend up
Right.
and not kind of be an issue. Eventually I was like, this is good enough. So
Oh
I
no,
take it
not
off.
with baking.
Yeah,
No, not with
huge
desserts.
mistake. He was just, I was like, this is good enough. And so we go to add it into like the butter, we let it cool. We go to add in the butter and it was clearly like there's way too much moisture in it.
Uh-huh.
And I do not recall what we did. I think I blacked that memory out.
You just went to the store and got Pillsbury. Just
Oh, I don't remember doing that, but that's what we should have
that's
done,
what you should have done.
honestly.
If I saw that, I'd be like,
I
go to
was
the store.
stressed.
Yeah, go get
Yeah,
no one's
I was
gonna know.
stressed. I was in the moment.
Yep.
No one, all the people that were helping me were just like, we don't know, and I
Yeah.
was like,
No, yeah, that's
yeah,
I've run into those situations before in mass, and like with hotel work, the way you sell menus is a lot of the time you're doing the hot food. Desserts we
mm,
usually like just cater out. We're like, we'll find a good
mm,
bakery nearby because they have all the equipment for stuff like that, and we'll
yeah,
buy
yeah,
the cakes, cheesecakes, canapes, whatever. We'll just buy everything and be like, hey, you guys have to pay for this now because it's your event. We just pass the bill
yeah,
off.
yeah.
But like, because dessert work in mass is not easy.
It's hard.
It's
It's
really
hard.
not easy. I have a lot of
Yeah.
respect for that line of work because you're talking about there's a lot of love that goes into it, but dessert stuff has to be so what's the word I'm looking for? Strategic. Yeah, and
Precise.
precise. Yes,
It's
exactly.
strategic. Yeah,
So like
yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
no, like everything has to look very uniform because if you put up some tacos on a station and like maybe the lettuce isn't perfect on every single one, it's not that big of a deal. But then if you go to put
yeah.
up like mini desserts everywhere and like
And they don't look
everything
the
is, yeah,
same.
they don't look the same, you're gonna
Yeah,
really
yeah,
gonna notice. And so
yeah,
I did not ever like doing that. I'm like, nope, we buy it from the
yeah,
bakery and we take it, we put it on the thing, and there you go. It's really good, and you can't, yeah,
yeah,
there's almost no way we were doing stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, thinking back, I wouldn't call it a bad con experience, but it was
A learning
certainly a frantic
experience.
one. Yeah, it was a frantic one for sure.
I think that
But
that is something to be said about just cons in general. Like yeah, we could riff on cons all day and about the things that they do wrong, but they do a lot of things right because of
yeah,
the sheer scale that's involved, right?
yeah,
How do
yeah,
you,
yeah,
for instance, how do you feed 140,000 people, right?
yeah.
Which there's numbers behind that. I think like Anime Expo, I don't think that's the amount of ticket sales. I think that's the amount of people who
Mm,
actually come in and out the doors each day. So usually
mm-hmm,
ticket sales
yeah.
are like 60,000 or so. Yeah, anyways, but even then, let's say 60,000 people. That's like two
Mm,
football stadiums, right?
mm,
If you're really thinking about how many food vendors a football stadium has compared to an anime convention, it's like
yeah,
tenfold, right? It's
yeah.
literally there's the field and then seats and then food,
And then food
right?
all the way
All the way
around it.
around it
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's how you make money. I
yeah.
I feel like so this is also my gripes with conventions is that too many of them take place in convention centers, and for
Mm,
better or worse those convention centers lay out the rules for the food and drink. So
yeah.
the reason why, like I pointed this out in my I spent like what is it, I tried all the food at Anime Expo video, where the
Mm-hmm.
reason why they do this is because of union rules too. So
Mm,
if you're buying convention center food, it's because the convention center is employing employees, right? So they
right,
have to pay the employees to be there. So what are they going to do?
right.
They're going to sell convention center stuff. There's no takeovers allowed within those realms. You can do the food trucks, you can do
Yeah.
outside food, whatever. But in the convention center itself, it is run by, so it's not Anime Expo. It's not Rose
Yeah.
City. It's not Anime NYC or any of those.
Mm,
They're not really in charge of the food within it. They'll
within it,
they'll bring
yeah.
in the food trucks and they'll do that and they'll try to curate it a little bit, but they do not handle anything else. All the prices,
Mm,
they're set by the convention center, right? So when
yeah.
you're going and spending $7 on an Americano, it's like
Mm,
it's not the
it
con,
is what it
it's
is.
the convention
Yeah.
center. So I think a lot of people have but they associate it like, oh, I went to Anime Expo
Mm,
and I bought, the pizza for $13. It was
mm,
raw. Like I actually did that at
yeah.
Emerald City Comic Con. I bought a little mini pizza and the middle of it was raw. I'm like, okay,
No.
if this were a pizza food truck that was attached
Yeah.
to an actual business, the pizza
Mm,
probably would have been really good. It would have been a little more expensive, but it would have probably been great. Whereas this
yeah.
thing is just frozen, like the things that
Half.
you could buy
Yeah.
from from the school that your child goes to, and
Yeah.
they just, it is what it is. They're just pumping stuff out and trying to get people fed. Those are some of
Yeah.
my like, it sucks because I think people even listening to this or like you and I or a lot of people, you associate like conventions with like
Mm,
memories, right? Like that's how I always see it.
mm.
They're memorable experiences, but they're augmented for me anyways a lot of the time with food and drink.
With food.
So
Yeah, yeah,
one of my good friends, Vivian, she's a cosplayer. The first time I met her, she was in like a Star Wars costume and I was in some other cosplay, and we went to the bar inside the Rose City Convention Center, and we had a couple of cocktails and like a hummus plate, and then she stiffed me with the bill. And she, cuz she like got busy and she like walked away. She like DM'd me the next day. She was like, "Hey, I'm
yeah.
so sorry, whatever, I forgot." And now we go to her house for Thanksgiving every year, like, right? So now we've
Nice.
made,
A fair
yeah, we're
trade-off.
all very good friends now. But I like that to me needs to happen more often, right?
Mm,
A
mm,
lot of people, they use food as utility, but
mm,
I think that it needs to change a little bit more. It needs to be more of
mm.
like we're enjoying it in the moment because then it augments
Yeah.
everything else. Does that kind of right? Does
Yeah.
that feel
Well,
accurate?
100%. Yeah, because that's what food is about,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, there's an interesting argument of just like utilitarian eating, like we're just eating because we need to
Yeah, you just
sustain
eat a
our
granola bar or something.
meat
Yeah.
sacks or whatever. Yeah, but like I think with food, in and of itself, the point of food is bringing people together
Mm-hmm.
and inspiring those amazing conversations and stuff. So I think it's a big like sort of soft opportunity for the cons to really be giving people time to like sit and enjoy and soak in the atmosphere and the vibe and everything. And I think going back to Disneyland, they do this really well, like having themed food
Right.
experiences and like frequent food experiences. And obviously you can't pull that off in a convention
Yeah.
where like you're there for a weekend or
Right.
whatever. But even I think even sometimes like where they pull in food trucks and stuff, the areas are sometimes so inhospitable.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a place to buy food, but there's no place to sit
Yeah.
down.
Same thing that happened
And like
at AX, right? Like the beer garden.
yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just is not fun. It's like not a fun
Mm-hmm.
experience. And I think that there needs to be more work around that to let people have those experiences a little bit. And honestly, some of the best times that I've ever had at cons have taken place outside the
Oh,
con in
absolutely.
a restaurant down the
Yep.
street, you know?
Yeah,
And like
that
that's the
was
stuff that you remember.
exactly, and that's like I point to the first night when I met up with my buddy Krim, he has a Magic the Gathering channel, and like he's like,
Yeah.
bro, we gotta go to K Town and get Galbi Jim, and I thought we were
Mm.
getting Korean barbecue. But I mentioned that I wanted Galbi Jim, but I couldn't remember the name of it. He's like, I got you. We drive to K Town, we all meet up, we order like it was like $300 of food and soju, but it
Yeah.
was also seven of us, right? So we all
Yeah.
split the bill and we're paying what, 45, $50 or whatever per person. But there was
Yeah.
so much food. And I know $50 is still a lot of money, but I cannot explain to you how much food and bottles of soju, like four bottles of soju
It
is
is.
probably that 75,
Yeah.
$80 of it. So if you don't get that, you're only spending
Yeah.
like 200, right? Either way,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that is a memory I remember. And then the second night
Mhm.
we all met up, we went to Little Tokyo, and just
Mm, mhm.
seeing, because Little Tokyo became like the second mecca for people who left Anime Expo because like I'm done with the con.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to eat or
Want to go
do
do
here. So
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a lot of them go to Little Tokyo, and we went and we went to this like taiyaki ice cream place where they like fill the taiyaki like waffle with ice cream and they put toppings on it. And I just remember like just being in that moment of like it was like probably like it looked like a 2 year old just going just like eating my ice cream on the road, right? I just did just dripping down my arm. I didn't care. We
Yeah.
ended up going to a local Japanese whiskey bar afterwards. Like you remember those things.
That sounds so
Right.
cool.
And like, yes, I
Yeah.
do remember having the dumplings at the beer garden. I remember I don't remember what they tasted like, I remember
Mm,
getting the hot
mm,
dog. It was okay because I remember the massive amount of potato,
yeah.
but I only remember those things
Mhm.
because I was making like a video about them. So I had to watch
Yeah,
the
yeah,
edit and everything. Whereas like
yeah.
I remember the other things because it was memorable and it was a great experience
Mm,
and you're with people. That was really cool.
yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, come to think of it sorry, no,
no,
sorry. Carry on.
and here's my thing with all of that. Imagine like that food truck area at Anime Expo, right? What if
Yeah.
instead of a food truck, if they really played it out and made it a much bigger area, they kind of combined a couple of areas and they made
Mhm.
it like a daytime, like Japanese style festival,
Hangout.
right?
Oh,
And then at
yeah!
night, all the lanterns are on and they have food stalls and
That would be so
it's not
cool.
a lot more to do. It's just a different
Yeah.
layout. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you can imagine on the business side how much more money they would make, right? Because now
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
staying on premises. The other problem is because I kind of know the back end stuff of like
Mm.
they charged vendors so much money just to be there without like, and then
Really?
they charge a percentage. I'm like, if you gave
Mm.
vendors a reason to stay open by not keeping all of
Yeah.
their money, you would have had
Yeah.
vendors stay and people would have stayed and they would have had a much better time. Like, it's hard because
Yeah.
I think like you, I'm a people pleaser. I'd rather
Mhm.
make less money and make people who are coming to my event happy.
Have like a fun event. Yeah.
Because then they want to come back next year,
Yeah.
you know. But that's
Yeah.
I could go on
I
about
guess
that
it
all day.
goes, and I guess we don't know specifically, like, we don't know how much it
Hmm.
costs and like
I'm assuming
how
a couple
much the
thousand
permissions are
minimum.
for
Yeah.
everything, but they have to be making money, and you have to just wonder how much money are they making,
Hmm.
and yeah, that is something I've always wondered, like how do event organizers who do these kind of conventions, these like single year conventions, like how do they make money? Like Anime Expo, they're having one convention a year. Although I think that they're branching out and they're going to try to do two, but
Yeah.
like
Now they're
how do
doing
they
one in
make money?
Ontario.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
so
yeah. So,
from what I gather, a lot of conventions because technically, Anime Expo is a nonprofit, right?
mm,
So it's the Japanese Society. I can't remember the full name, but technically are a nonprofit. But they still pay some people to obviously run the show. But then the majority of people
mm,
who are there are volunteers. It
mm-hmm.
could be again on the convention center of saying, "Oh, our prices went up to have these spots,"
Yeah.
because a lot of the places that the food trucks were located this year weren't available
Mm,
in previous years. So I'm assuming
mm,
that they had to rent out that space and then that cost gets
right.
passed off to the food truck owners, right? That makes the
Yeah,
most
yeah.
sense. I don't think Anime Expo is making a ton of money as profit
Mm,
because again,
mm,
they're a nonprofit, so they're just like, here's the upfront costs. Again,
yeah.
it comes back to the convention center where the convention center is trying to recoup costs or whatever the case is. And honestly,
Yeah.
I wish I had like an unlimited amount of funds. I would build like a stadium or a convention center that just exists just for this stuff and be like, let
Mm,
me break even. I don't
just
need to
rent it
make
out.
any money on
Which
it.
is Yeah, which is what like I think we talked about this before. Like there are some cafes here that do the same thing. They just exist to be like a limited time only anime or
Hmm.
like event cafe, and you just rent out the space and come in and do your thing and then
Hmm.
get out of Dodge or whatever.
No, yeah. And
But
so on that note with the food, we talked about food trucks. What's the worst thing you've had at a con?
hmm. Well, I have had some pretty bad takoyaki,
Oh, that might be the worst.
like cold.
Oh
Okay, well, I
no.
think I think it's important to preface this by saying I don't love
Oh,
takoyaki.
I could eat takoyaki all day. Just
I'm
line
not a
them up
huge fan. I like takoyaki when you turn them into fun balls of stuff. I'm not a big fan of
of the
octopus.
octopus.
I
Okay.
find I find the octopus inside to be too chewy,
Yeah.
too bouncy. For me, it's just not a fun
Texture. Yeah,
experience.
yeah.
So, what I like to do is I like to take takoyaki and turn them into literal takoyaki, and
Okay.
instead of filling them with like octopus and stuff, I like to put seasoned taco meat, and like
Yeah.
you have your sour creams and your guacamoles and your
Yep.
salsas and like all that kind of
I've done
stuff.
that. It's
Or
so good.
I Yeah, yeah, I want to do a pizza variation on
Okay.
that. I want to do a hamburger variation on that. I have had good takoyaki that have like pork and ranch and
Hmm.
like cheese,
Yep.
and I'm like, yeah, that's the good stuff. But at a convention, this was in the convention, I think some company was selling it, and it was like cold and dry, and like everything was just not, it was not good.
That'd be
And I
so
remember
disappointing. And it was probably
yeah.
expensive, like $2 a ball, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm the kind of person where if it's not good, I will just throw it away because I
Hmm.
would
To
prefer.
not
I'm
spend
just like,
it's
why
yeah.
would I
Yeah,
eat
you're
it?
spending the
I'm
calories at
like,
that point too.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It's like not only is this a financial burden, but this is gonna be with me,
Yeah. Yeah, literally.
for many
Yep.
days, and so you just kind of like throw it away, and it's disappointing. And I learned from that. I never eat at conventions. I always go out
Yeah.
and I try to find a restaurant off premises.
I will say some of the stuff at Anime Expo was really good. Most of the
Mm.
things that were good were sweet. So like the ice cream
Mm,
place was
yeah,
really good. They had an ice cream truck that was doing soft serve. That was
yeah,
actually fantastic. They had a dumpling place
yeah.
that was really good, but just really overpriced.
Yeah.
But then the worst thing I had was also at Anime Expo. I think
Okay.
that the kind of raw in the middle pizza that I had at Emerald City Comic Con,
That's bad.
that was still better, right, than this next food that was at Anime Expo. It
No.
was, I don't remember the truck. Um, it was a Persona 5 Royale like pop-up truck or something, or they were doing a menu
Mm,
for it, and it was chicken
mm.
yakisoba. And I'm like, okay, chicken yakisoba,
It's hard to mess up.
right?
It's yeah.
But I guess that they were
Mm.
so busy the first day that the second day they were pre-making a bunch of yakisoba and then putting it in containers, like not even, and then putting it into under a heat lamp. And I'm like, do you know what happens to noodles when they just sit under a lamp? They like
Yeah.
clump up and they it
Yeah.
becomes one noodle again. You know, it just
Yeah.
turns back into its original
Yeah.
form. And I'm like, so it was
Mm-mm.
$25 for yeah, for yakisoba like this big, this big. You see this?
Are
That,
you
no joke. It was a, yeah,
serious?
and maybe like, and
Whoa.
it was in the video and you could barely pull the noodles up because they were clumping together, and the chicken on top, I'm pretty sure was like Costco canned chicken, like that dry chicken
No.
breast.
No.
We took
No.
2 bites. My friend Viv, because she wanted to try the yakisoba. She's like, she loves noodles. She loves stir fried noodles.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
she
Who
takes a
doesn't?
bite and she's just stopping. She's like, this is
No.
bad. And she's very blunt. She's like, this doesn't taste good at all. She's like, it tastes like
No.
salt, just salt. No
No.
soy flavor, nothing. She's like, it tastes like salt. And I took a bite of it. I'm like, this is not worth it. We threw it away. And I
Oh.
felt so bad because I hate throwing away food. I'm the
Wasting
opposite.
food.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, if it's passable, I'll still eat it.
Mm.
But like, I very rarely throw away food. And this was
Mm.
just inedible. I'm like, why am I going to put my
Wow.
stomach through the pain of this? Yeah.
For $25?
Yeah, like restaurant
Highway
grade.
robbery.
Yeah, restaurant grade yakisoba is maybe $15, right?
Maybe 15.
Maybe,
Yeah.
right? Like
Wow.
I made
Highway
yeah,
robbery.
I made yakisoba last night. It was for yakisoba pan,
It's cheap.
and it was
Yeah.
I marinated bacon in bulgogi sauce. I like did the stir fried
Ooh.
noodles and the veggie. The whole
Ooh.
for like 5 or 6 portions. It probably cost me the
Ooh.
$10 for a
Yeah.
giant
Yeah.
wok full of it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand you have to make money, but at least give me fresh noodles. If they were like really good and like crisp and they had some freshness to them and a nice sauce, and I paid $25 for it, I'd be like, all right, that was really
Like,
good. I'm
fine.
not going to buy
Yeah.
another one because
Yeah.
it was very expensive, but it was really good. I'm also
Yeah.
that type of buyer where if the experience is good, even if, like it's a little expensive, I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
It's okay.
But if you
Yeah.
like take
Yeah.
my money and then like I would have rather gone to Taco Bell, like straight up, $25 at
Oh.
Taco Bell goes a long way, buddy. Like I'll kick
Oh.
rocks down the street, go to Taco Bell and like pay for it later in the bathroom. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I would I
Right.
would have that experience. Yes.
Rather have a consistent. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to waste your money.
No, it sucks.
You want
And
to.
then on top of that
Yeah.
trip to Anime Expo cost me $400 in one day for food because we were just buying
No. Well, you were
things.
eating
Yeah,
everything.
but we actually didn't get to try everything. We ate until I think it was 4 of us were eating until we were all pretty like satisfied, and that came to
Yeah.
$100 a person basically. I'm like, the
Yeah.
Galbi Gym restaurant with all of the soju and everything was less than that.
Yeah.
It's wild to me that like
That's crazy.
it sucks that a lot of the worst experiences about cons center around the food for me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
nipples hanging out, whatever, like I was in a Navi outfit where it was like the white morph suit with fairy wings, and like I didn't put anything to block, what what I'm talking about. And, I'm like scaring children,
Oh.
and
Oh.
just throwing it out there. There's pictures on the internet.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it's terrifying. Like that was great compared to like the food situations. I'm like this.
Yeah.
So hopefully one day when I have my convention, we can just have like a Japanese style festival within the convention.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
Everybody
that would be
dressed
cool.
up in
That would be
cosplay,
amazing.
going to that's what I want. Yeah,
That would be amazing.
I love
That'd
it.
be amazing.
Yeah. Anything else you have?
Well, no, I was gonna say, speaking of spending money, you guys go spend money on our Patreon and support us over
You'll
there.
get episode 0.
Unlike
Episode 0.
unlike that, you get episode 0, and then it just support. It helps us out, keeps us all going.
Yep.
Hopefully, one day we can hire an editor or
Yes,
something.
that's a big
Um,
goal.
Yeah, that's a big goal for us. But yeah, honestly, go over. We promise that it'll be more satisfying than that $25 yakisoba that you spend all your
I
money on.
promise it'll be much better than the yakisoba that I spent my money on. Everything is better than that.
Yes.
Cool.
Well, go check out our channels. Paul is over on YouTube at Chef PK, Twitter.
All the
Are you on
things.
anything else? Instagram, all the things.
Just type it on
Yeah.
Google. Just
Yeah.
Google.
Go look me up.
Yeah, Google us.
Yeah. Google us, look me up. Penguin Snacks. I recently had a cookbook that came out, so go and buy that.
Which
and,
we have words
it
about
should be
in the
available.
next episode.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Should be available at your local bookstore, so go support me.
Sweet.
If you want to, just
do it.
An idea, a thought.
Just do it.
Okay, well, any last words, Paul?
That's it for tonight. You guys have a great night.
Yeah. Okay, see you guys later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.